everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kayla. This is my book review series where I just review books. You get the gist. This week I am going to be reviewing The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. This is a book that I got from the Book of the Month service. I've been getting a lot of books from here recently. I actually got 2 for the month of March instead of the usual 1 because I really liked the 2 that are on there. I've only read one of the books from the Book of the Month for this month, but I'm planning on reading the next one, so if it's anything like this one, I'm going to really enjoy it. So the first part of this review is going to be, for the most part, spoiler-free. There are a few things that I'm going to touch on, like themes and sort of, not any key events that happen, but just, I'm going to be talking about a little more than what you read and what you know just going into the book with just the synopsis. Just a little bit of information here and there, but not anything that's like revolutionary, you know what I mean? And then the second half of the review, or the later half, is going to be spoilered. I will remind you later on when we get into that and tell you when to click off, so don't worry. So this book follows a story of 3 women in southern England, all in first-person perspective in alternating chapters. However, the story does take place in 2 different time periods, the 1790s and current day, so modern day. The first person we get to know is Caroline, and her story takes place in modern day. Caroline is a history buff who has recently found out that her husband of 10 years, or her partner of 10 years, has cheated on her. She goes to London alone on the anniversary trip that they were supposed to go on together, and there she gets herself caught up in a historical mystery that kind of invigorates or ignites her desire to live a fantastical or live a fulfilling life again and to do what she always wanted to do. The second woman we meet is a middle-aged woman, I believe she's in her 40s, named Nella. She works as an apothecary in the 1790s in an apothecary shop, so she sells potions and tinctures to help women with everyday things because doctors aren't as well off aren't as good back then, so she just helps women. Nella inherited her apothecary shop as well as her knowledge for these tinctures and these potions. Not potions, this isn't like Wizard of Oz or Harry Potter, but you get what I'm saying, like her knowledge of how to brew these things from her mother, who passed away before the story began. However, as a result of one of her past heartbreaks, she started to administer poisons to women to give to men that were damaging in their life. Men who mistreated them or tried to harm them, or she administered these to women who had no other choice. The third woman is a 12-year-old servant girl named Eliza Fanning. She comes across Nella's shop to buy a vial of poison for her mistress, or the woman she's working for. She very quickly becomes intrigued by Nella's shop of potions and what she calls magic, and becomes a sort of apprentice to Nella, and they work together a lot in the book. So I was first intrigued by this book when I saw it on Book of the Month, because I've always been intrigued by like natural or medicinal herbal remedies to problems, particularly those taking place in the 1790s or in a time period or a place in the world where the regular medicine isn't as advanced, because you have to resort to these other practices to help people. And people still practice that to this day with medicinal solutions to things, which I think is really cool. And as I talked about last week in my TBR, if you want to go check that out, Bailey Sarian is a YouTuber I watch. She does like true crime things. She's the lady who does her makeup while she does like true crime cases. And she had a story, I don't know if it's based on this, but I think it's kind of close, of women who would poison their husbands. It's called Aqua Tofana. I can't remember, Bella something. I can't remember what her name was, but it was close to this and it reminded me of it when I saw it on Book of the Month, so I picked it up. It's really, I don't know. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed both of the narratives that were in the past, that of Nella and Eliza. We really got to see the gender inequality and class divide that existed back in that time in England. So Eliza is a 12-year-old servant girl who really doesn't know how to read, and her parents had to send her off to find work so that she could she could live, be able to survive. And you really get to see a little bit of how society operated back in the 1790s and how this underground system of women was built who rely on each other. And, because they really find Nella's shop through word of mouth. And, they have to trust each other that, Nella's not going to give them up and rat them out. And they're not going to rat Nella out, And the concept of these women who literally have no other choice but to sometimes ask Nella for poison to rid them of the men in their lives who are going to harm them either way or have done them wrong in some way, because you can't really get divorced, you know what I mean? Maybe you can, but it's not as, prevalent. It's harder to do, whether they are cheaters or abusive to their wives or mistresses or whatever. The police don't really do anything. We see that nowadays, And Nella also really intrigued me. She inherited this potion shop from her mother, and both her and her mother wanted nothing more than to help the women in their lives, because one way or another both her and her mother felt helpless at a period in time because of a man, so they wanted to be able to help other people. Anything that are herbal or medicinal recipes could help, and then eventually, the poisonous elements. Nella also swore that she wouldn't kill women, so did her mother. She would not administer a poison that she knew would kill a woman. And she even, this is not a big spoiler, but she even destroyed some of her work once in the book in order to attempt to live up to her, there's a lot of twos, to her vow that she would not kill a woman. She vowed to keep her promise to her mother and to the women that she promised secrecy and protection for. So something I really enjoyed was how the author managed to keep you interested in all three perspectives, particularly Caroline, because when I first started reading this book, I thought I wouldn't really be that intrigued by Caroline's story. I would care more about the past, of Nella and Caroline, or Nella and Eliza. I didn't think I would care more about the modern day stuff, because I see that every day, you know what I mean? I care about what's going on in the past. But this is not the case. Caroline's story and her journey very much intrigued me and gripped me, not more than Nella and Eliza's, but it still held its own, which I really appreciated. So Caroline meets this random man, and he invites her to go mudlarking, which is basically you just look for stuff in the river. And wanting to have some adventure in her life again, she agrees. She then found this blue vial, apothecary vial, in the lake, which had a bear engraving on the back. And through her narration, we get to see how she unravels this 2-century-old historical mystery and the murders of the apothecary shop. Caroline felt very unfulfilled in her life and her marriage and her deep desire to have kids, even though she, for reasons you'll see in the book, just hasn't yet. She's got a cheating husband, and other reasons, but you'll read that if you read the book. She got stuck in the safe job in a relationship where she's constantly having to compromise, and then he eventually cheats on her. And when her husband shows back up in England London to try and rekindle their relationship, he really acts as a barrier for her journey to solve the crime and to invigorate her or excite her life again, you know what I mean? She took the job that paid, not the one she wanted to do. She got stuck in a relationship she didn't want to, not necessarily she didn't want to be in, but where she ended up becoming complacent, when what she really wanted to do was study history and the story of the little guys, the people that aren't really going to be documented much in history. No, not the royalty, not the noble people, just everyday you and me, just everyday people, the ones that are quickly forgotten in history, unfortunately. Which brings me into my next discussion point with Nella and her story. This is the parallel between both Nella and Caroline. As I mentioned before, Caroline is really excited and intrigued in everyday folk, just the poor people, the people who are quickly going to be swept under the rug and not thought about in the grander scheme of history. But Caroline is very intrigued by these people, which Nella is also like this. So every time someone buys a tincture from her, whether it's poison or just the regular, she writes their name down and writes their name down, because she thinks that's the only place that their names are ever going to be written down. She wants to, they're not noble, they're not rich, they're not a princess, not a duchess, they're just normal people. They're not a lord or you know what I mean? They're just normal people, and they may not be written down in history anywhere else. So she swears to write them down and to preserve their memory in her book, and to at least have their name written down somewhere. It's cool to see how, in the grander scheme of history, these people, these women, aren't necessarily important to the grander scheme of things, but both Nella and Caroline deeply care about them and want to know their stories and want to make sure their stories are told or heard and that people know their stories. And all three women, without giving away too many spoilers, feel a certain degree of unfulfillment in their life and are all running from the demons of what they did in their past and how it still affects them today, and the uncertainty of their future and what that holds for them, which I really appreciated and I think was done very well in this book. You have three women of varying ages, social classes, time periods, and ways of life that are all experiencing similar things or have that sense of space in their heart that's not filled up, you know what I mean? And they can relate to each other in that way without even, knowing each other. Caroline doesn't even know Nella and Eliza personally, but she says a couple times where she feels drawn to the story, drawn to these people, despite not knowing them at all or knowing their story. For instance, both Nella and Caroline they talk about their own experiences with infertility and with not having a child. And I think even in Nella's instance, did I say Nella? Nella and Caroline is who I'm talking about, the two people. Nella describes how she even sometimes looks at Eliza as a stand-in for the daughter she never got to have. And all three know what it's like to have men who have treated them wrongly in their life, which I found most intriguing with Caroline. She has an unfaithful husband. She knows what these women in the past who poisoned their husbands or their men in their life, she knows what they feel and how she can relate to that. Obviously, she never poisoned her husband, but she knows what they're feeling. She can understand why they would have to resort to murder. Another thing I also enjoyed was the treasure hunt of sorts that Caroline has to go on to try and uncover this murder. If you've ever seen the National Treasure movies or played Tomb Raider on the consoles, it felt very much like, you're trying to solve a mystery with Caroline. Running around town, looking in books and looking at maps and, just uncovering little pieces, looking up articles, etc., whatever. It feels really cool to go on a journey with Caroline to uncover a hidden part of history. If you are intrigued by history, I definitely recommend this book, but you have to remember that it is historical fiction. It's not a true story you're talking about. It's based, I don't know, but it's not historical nonfiction, right? It's not a true story. And if you're looking for a book that goes a detailed description of an actual true life event or goes really deep into the science and the, not science, but the details of history, this is not so much the book for you. This book is more a whimsical story of magic and of friendship and of, what you would do in a position if you were in this position of these women. What these women would do for each other in the sense of camaraderie or community they have. And it's a sense of finding yourself and your identity and your freedom in, really hard times and difficult journeys. Now we're going to delve a little bit into the spoiler part of the book. So if you don't want to be spoiled, I would recommend clicking off. If you have read the book, or if you are never going to read the book and don't really want to read the book, but you want to kind of find out how it ends or feel my thoughts on that, hear my thoughts on that, you can stay. You can stay if you haven't read the book. You know how YouTube works. Do what you want, you know what I mean? Okay, but bye if you're gonna click off. See you sometime, I don't know. Bye. So, all three girls go on a certain journey in this book, their own journey. Both Nella, Caroline, and Eliza. Not both. All three of them go on a journey. The one that intrigued me the most, and I was surprised that this one is the one that intrigued me the most, but it was Caroline. And her desire to become independent and reignite her thrill for adventure and for fun and for, just doing something random or taking a risk and see. Sorry, my camera cut out for some reason and everything just kind of blew up at the same time, but to take a risk and see where it takes you is what I was trying to say. But like I said before, when Caroline's husband makes his way back to London to try and, rekindle their relationship, he provides barrier for, her and her journey, which I'm sure is something he did in their relationship prior to the book starting and prior to the cheating. So, when he is the one to cheat and tells Caroline he did it because he felt complacent, he felt unfulfilled in his own life, when, it just kind of made me mad, because Caroline, in most of the scenarios we've seen, is the one to compromise. She took the safe job. She decided not to apply to a college she really wanted to get into. She, didn't have a baby when she wanted to. She's the one who constantly has to compromise, and he's the one who cheated because he felt unfulfilled. It's like, well, she gave up everything to be with you. Shut up, you know what I mean? And then we find out that he was the one who got himself poisoned and poisoned himself. And it's like, he did this to get her back and to make him, to get her to be like, oh, you got hurt, that's so sad, let's get back together. But it's like, no, you just poisoned yourself to, like, regain control around your wife, the person that you're supposed to be in love with, but you're controlling her in this way. I did not like his character. He made me so angry. So when she decides that she doesn't want to be with him anymore, a man that's controlling everything she does, I personally was very proud of her, because she deserved that, and she deserved to do what she wants with her life and not be governed by anyone else. And I was very happy that Penner, the author, didn't try to make some sort of argument and get them back together and argue that cheating was valid, or it was okay as long as you get back together and you're in love. I would have been very angry, because that's like, no, shut up. And everyone tells me, you'll understand when you get older, but like, no. And Caroline's story ending with her finally going to the school she wanted to go to, with the degree she wanted to, having a good job prospect to, work at the British Library, or really anywhere she wants to after she gets her master's degree. She's free from her toxic relationship and free to do what she wants finally. It just felt very good. And then her vowing to keep Eliza's secret that she really survived was a beautiful touch. And I don't know, I thought it was, she wanted to find out about history and is intrigued by history, and it's just another proof that she wasn't in it for the money or for the fame or whatever. She mentions it, she could have gotten a lot of fame, a lot of money from detailing Eliza's story and how she survived, but she didn't want to. She wanted to keep it for herself. She wanted to, she just wanted to keep her story safe. And, finding out that the vial that Caroline had, that blue vial at the beginning, was the same vial that Eliza jumped in the lake with, or the river with. I thought it was a nice touch that it was so connected. We knew that she had a vial that either Nella or Eliza had dealt with or had touched, but it was the exact vial that Eliza jumped in the lake with, or the river with. I was cool how connected it really was. And then through Caroline's narration, we see, or Gaynor tells us, that Eliza giving out the vial with the address written on the back was the beginning of the end, but we don't see how it's ended yet in the past in Nella and Eliza's narration. And then we see when Gaynor and Caroline, sorry, the names, Gaynor and Caroline are having that discussion at the coffee shop or whatever restaurant they were at, and she's like, I have 2 articles for you, and the first article is the one about Mr. Lord Clarence's death, and that was the same article that Nella had seen in the past where they were kind of freaked out. Then we get the second article, which, is detailing, we assume, how the story ended, how the story of Nella and Eliza and the book is presumably ending, but then she gets the call from her husband to be like, hey, I need you to come back to the hotel, something happened, which we later find out he got poisoned or poisoned himself. But it was just cool. I was so frustrated. I was like, that's going to tell us the end. You know what I mean? And again, now that I'm thinking about it, that's another instance of her husband providing a barrier between her finding out the story, because he calls her right in the middle of it. Dang! I love that, though. He's like he is a barrier between her finding out the story, too soon, so we can, see it in the other narration, you know what I mean? That's cool. And, I guess we see Caroline go to the apothecary shop, sneak into there, and I guess it's always assumed or hinted at that something ended badly with Nella and her shop, and we kind of go through the whole book knowing something's going to happen to make it end abruptly, or that's how you say the word? I don't know. End rapidly, or end. You know what I mean? But it's not until the article where we see the beginning and the end that we really know something bad's going to happen, and then the whole thing with Lady Clarence and her husband, you know, getting murdered, yada yada yada. It's just cool to see how we know something bad's going to happen, but we're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. So the growth of Nella and Caroline, or Nella and Eliza, are both greatly intertwined because they're, you know, both in the same time period and together. So I'm going to talk about them together, and probably not as much because I've been talking for a while and I don't have as much to say about Nella and Eliza, which surprised me. Anywho, so Nella had suffered a miscarriage at the hand of her ex-lover, who had poisoned her, you know, used her own shop against her, and, you know, kind of cemented his place as her first victim of, you know, first person she poisoned because he, you know, caused a miscarriage. But Nella saw a lot of her deceased daughter in Eliza. You know, she constantly, or not constantly, but a couple times she would call Eliza, like, my Eliza, or she would be looking at Eliza and would see her daughter in her, just how she acted, or she constantly said, my daughter would be 19 right now, you know, she'd be around Eliza's age, and she'd be working here, you know, when she turned 12, she would be working here with me, learning the stories, be so intrigued about, you know, the vials and the tinctures. She would be just like Eliza with that big curiosity. Nella and Eliza's relationship also very intrigued me. You know, it felt very much like a mother-daughter relationship, but it also felt like friends and of co-workers and of just two women who needed each other, despite, you know, being 12 and I think Nella's like 40. And, you know, Eliza was for the most part uneducated because of the climate of the world at that time. And she, you know, so her obsession and fascination with the tinctures and the potions, she saw it as magic. You know, her mom always talked about magic being able to save you, even, you know, so Eliza believes that this magic is going to save Nella and Eliza herself, you know, no matter what predicament they get into. You know, she has that vial of, you know, to reverse bad fortune or misfortune, and, you know, she believes that it's going to save her when she jumps into the lake, or the river, sorry. She thinks it's going to save her no matter what. She very easily could have drowned, and when I first read it, I was like, you know, her belief in magic was misplaced. You know, there's no reason. Why would Eliza believe that that vial was going to save her when she jumped in? And I thought, you know, she was just young and naive and not as educated. But when I was thinking about it and I read it, the couple pages of that again, you know, Eliza's belief in magic went deeper than just the potions and the tinctures. She believed in people and, you know, in what Nella was doing for these women. She believed in Nella. You know, she was willing to sacrifice her life for Nella, who she'd only met a couple days before, because she believed so much in her and connected so much with her, which I think is in a way magic and is beautiful in and of itself. And, you know, when Nella was reaching the end of her life, you know, plagued by a sickness that even her own potions couldn't help, she still made her way to Eliza's mistress in order to tell her what had happened to her, that, you know, Eliza had jumped off of the lake and, you know, for what she knew, or jumped into the river, and for what she knew had died. And I love how at the end it switches so much between Nella and Caroline's perspective, and it never switches back into Eliza's after she jumps into the river. We get to see Nella go to Eliza's mistress's house, her house, and see a servant girl who looks a lot like Eliza, but I guess when I first read it, you know, you kind of think it's her mind playing tricks on her. She's not really seeing Eliza, because we have the imagery of her seeing her daughter in Eliza, you know, so we think maybe she's just seeing Eliza in somebody else now, you know what I mean? Because at this point, we assume, you know, Eliza is dead. You know, there's no reason to believe she's alive as of now. We switch back to Caroline's perspective, and we find out that she did indeed survive, and that she lived to be at least, you know, a 22-year-old woman, and married the guy from the bookshop, and, you know, had kids, 2 kids. And then the first time I read the end pages, I assumed Nella had died as well. I just thought she had passed away as soon as she saw Eliza and just stopped living. You know, she just couldn't hold on anymore. But then it said in the article that Nella still counsels and helps Eliza till this day and gives her advice. And I assume she was talking about her in spirit. But then, here, I'll just read this for you. She says, this is in Nella's perspective, but then a flash of movement as a shadow pulled away from the window. I fell to my knees, the urge to cough rising within me, the colors of London turning to black, everything turning black, my last breath only seconds away. And then, in my final coherent moment, the color around me returning, little Eliza with the bright youthful eyes I knew so well, floating out of the house in my direction. A rosy flash of glass. I frowned, trying to focus my vision. Clutched in her hand was a tiny vial, so similar in size and shape to the one she'd offered me on the bridge, only that vial had been blue, and this one was seashell pink. She uncorked it as she ran towards me. I reached for her bright shadow, finding it all so strange and unexpected, the flush in her cheeks, the inquisitive grin, as though this was not a ghost at all. Everything about her was so lifelike. Everything about her just I remembered in the moments before her death. So, like, she's so lifelike, you know what I mean? And it's not the same. Like, I thought, if she still has the same vial, she's not going to be able to save her. That's just the tincture to erase bad fortune, you know, and the only way Eliza survived with it because it warmed her up in the cold, you know what I mean? But it's pink. So maybe she found some other way to, like, help her, or just to prolong her death, I guess. I don't know. I think she's alive. I don't know. But, like, I was also confused. I don't know. You know what I mean? Open-ended, I think, unless I'm just not reading it correctly and just confused. But maybe she's alive. Maybe she's alive. Anywho, so my final thoughts on the book. I really enjoyed it. There's nothing about it I particularly dislike, but I am going to talk about two things that I don't absolutely love. So there was a particular scene or plot point that really really made me mad, not intriguing me, really made me angry. And it's not about Penner's writing at all, so I'm just going to talk about it. I actually really love Penner's writing. I think it's beautifully done, and it's very, I don't know, it's like, it feels whimsical when you're reading it, how she writes it. But this issue arises in the scene with Lady Clarence, you know, the rich lady who wanted to get poison to poison her mistress, and, you know, Nella was like, no, I don't poison women, and she threatened to out Nella if she didn't give her the potion. And then when she finally got Nella to give her the potion and she got caught, she wanted to come back and cry to Nella and Eliza and be like, oh, please save me, you know, what am I gonna do? You have to help me out, you know, like, I'm gonna get caught. It's like, girl, you got them in the predicament in the first place. You're the one who made them do it. You know, Lady Clarence was a scary person, and it just goes to show how, you know, how self-centered some rich people are, and are not used to being told no, and will beg you to do something and get very mad when you just tell them no. You know, they're entitled. It's also repetitive at certain points with Eliza, or sorry, I get the names confused, with Caroline, saying multiple times how she was confused on whether she wanted children or she, you know, wanted some security in her life. She just repeated those things many, many times. Also her repeating that, no, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. I hope someone comes in my way and tells me not to, or gets me caught so I don't have to go do this thing, but I'm going to do it anyway. You know, here we go. I guess I have to do it now. She says that many times, and I'm just like, it's a little repetitive, but not, it was just the me thing. I just noticed it. Not bad writing. Love the writing. But, you know, in the grander scheme of things, that really doesn't matter. It was a really good book. You know, I would give this 4.5 stars out of 5. Maybe 5 stars. I don't know. I'm indecisive. I really loved it. I'm not as good at telling if writing is really well as it's just about, like, I give stars about out of how much I enjoy a book, and I was very intrigued with it. I think I dragged a little bit towards, like, the middle, but, like, I enjoyed it, you know what I mean? I was just having an off week. Not really an off week. I don't know. I enjoyed it. 4.5, 5 stars, something like that. So, I was really captivated by the story, and I would recommend to read it. But if you're this far in the video, you've probably read the end of the book because you're in the spoiler section. So, and I love the cover. Look how pretty it is. It's really pretty, I think. Okay, bye. Love you, everyone. See you later.
If you have to accidentally
You'll have to edit
Hello.
on that. You'll have to edit.
You can turn it on. She didn't put it anywhere. You'll have to edit it on
Why?
my
Oh,
phone.
that's why you turned around?
Mm-hmm.
I
You
was
thought
like,
you were gonna start
I
with
thought
the
you're...
shit.
Oh,
Oh.
is it high enough?
I don't know. That's why I'm testing it
Okay.
first.
Usually you'll tell Mike is up like by your mouth.
I know, but like
That's
the
what
Murphy
makes
Napier girl, she wears it down here.
Okay.
Okay.
Just
Hello. How are you? My name's Kayla. Welcome to my channel. This is me talking loudly. This is me talking at a normal volume. This is me kind of whispering. How loud am I? Okay, now turn around, I guess. Okay, hello. This is me with my lapel on my upper area. This is me talking loudly. I'm getting excited about something. This is me talking at a normal volume. Haha, books. This is me whispering.
Did you just say haha book?
Yeah, laugh out loud.
This is me whispering.
Whoa.
You laugh like that, no one's
I should put this in the end. Okay.
By the way, this is my first time using the lapel mic.
Okay. Yeah. All right.